24 of the book of Numbers, and we're still talking about Balaam. Balaam is still up on the hill with Balak. Balak wanted him to curse Israel, and already twice he's opened his mouth to curse them, and a blessing came out. So we have talked in the last couple chapters how that God had seen fit to use this pagan prophet to actually speak through. And in chapter 24, we're going to see one of the most beautiful prophecies of Jesus that there is in the Old Testament, Jacob's star, and we'll see that later in the chapter. Why God would choose to speak through this pagan prophet, I don't know, but you're going to see that he's going to make a total of 5 prophecies, and each time Israel is going to be blessed. And it turns out that even Moab, who Balak is the king of Moab, is not going to be blessed as one of the prophecies. It's interesting. Balaam is still a interesting character to me, and hard to understand. It seems like that he understands that God is in charge. He has this kind of I guess maybe a head knowledge of God, but there's nothing changed. There's no change in life, and that is my greatest fear for people, especially. For instance, students in a Christian school who sit under the gospel year after year. They hear the gospel, and they may even understand it enough to write a paragraph on it or whatever, but it never really enters them. It never changes their life. They can be enlightened. Their brain can understand something. They can understand the ideas, maybe, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it will change their life. And I do not see that Balaam is a godly man, even at the end of this prophecy where he prophesies the Messiah on more than one occasion, that he still changed. And you're going to see that he will be up to his old tricks later on in the book. All right, so 24. And when Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he went not at other times to seek for enchantments, but he set his face towards the wilderness. Balaam lifted up his eyes and saw Israel abiding in his tents according to their tribe. The Spirit of God came upon him. All right, so God is actually going to speak through this for this pagan prophet, not his own person, not in his own people, not in any way a godly man, but God still can speak through him. So he took up the parable, that's his oracle, and Balaam the son of Beor hath said, and the eyes of the men are opened, hath said. He said, which heard the words of God, which saw the vision of the Almighty, falling into a trance, but having his eyes open. All right, so here's the prophecy. How goodly are thy tents, O Jacob, and thy tabernacles, O Israel, as the valleys are spread forth, as gardens by the riverside, as the trees of line aloes which the Lord had planted, as cedar trees beside the waters. Beautiful. He shall pour the water out of his buckets, and his seed shall be in the many waters, and the king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdoms exalted. Okay? Agag, by the way, is the king of the Amalekites, and the Amalekites are going to be, God fights the Amalekites through Israel for years and years and years. It's like the perpetual enemies of God. And it's this idea that he kind of is their king. I don't know if Agag is like the word Pharaoh, kind of the meaning for king, or if it's actually a guy's name. Okay. God brought forth out of Egypt, talking about Israel again. He hath, as it were, the strength of a unicorn. He shall eat up the nations his enemies, and shall break their bones, and pierce them through with arrows. He crouched, he lay down as a lion, as a great lion. Who shall stir him up? Blessed is he that blessed thee, and cursed be that curses thee. All right, now that's Balaam's words. He's looking out at the camps of the Hebrews, and he says, blessed are those who bless thee, and cursed be those who curse thee. Now that's really interesting coming from someone who was hired to curse them. That was his job, was to curse these people, but he speaks, and it's God speaking. And it's interesting because this reminds me, I'm just wondering if it's in your head too. Where have you heard this before? Blessed are the ones who bless you, and cursed be the ones who curse you. Do you remember this was God's words to Abraham? This is one of Abraham's promises, that those who will bless you will be blessed, and those who curse you will be cursed. Okay, it's the same. These are the descendants of Abraham, Abraham's descendants. Therefore, now flee thou to thy place. I thought to promote thee into great honor, but lo, the Lord has kept thee back from honor. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed Balak. So Balak the king, remember who hired him, was mad against Balaam because here's now 3 times he's blessed him instead of cursing. He smote his hands together. And Balak said to Balaam, I called you to curse my enemies, and behold, you have altogether blessed them 3 times. Okay? Now, therefore, flee from thy place. I thought to promote thee, but the Lord has kept thee back from honor. Ah, interesting. I would have given you money, but somehow the Lord that you're talking about all the time, because the Lord won't let you do what I'm hiring you to do, well, I'm not going to pay you. Blech. Okay? So 2012, and Balaam said to Balak, Spake I not to your messengers with you, saying, If Balak would give me his house full of silver, and I can't go beyond the commandment of the Lord to do either good or bad of my own mind, but what the Lord saith I will speak. See, I think this is why it confuses me. This man thinks that it's no big deal that God should speak through him. There's an arrogancy to him. He's like, yeah, I'm just the prophet. I'm the one that God speaks through. The idea that he doesn't know God at all, or that he would fear God, as though he's somehow the mouthpiece of the gods, and that this is the God of the Hebrews speaking this time. He's tuned into that radio station instead of a different one. It's an arrogant. There's an arrogance here, but it's interesting. God chose to speak through him, even though this guy is arrogant, thinking that it's no big deal for God to speak through him. Okay. 2014, and now, behold, I go to my people. Come, therefore, I will advertise thee what these people shall do unto thy people in the latter days. Okay, so he's going to do a 4th prophecy. He took up his parable and said, Balaam the son of Beor hath said, and the man whose eyes are open, he has said, which heard the words of God and knew the knowledge of the Most High, which he saw in the vision of the Almighty, falling into a trance, but keeping his eyes open. You've heard that before. That verse is repeated. 17. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab and destroy all the children of Sheth. Okay, Sheth, that's Edom. Okay, remember, Edom wouldn't let them pass. So his 4th one, he just basically went into a trance and he said, I don't see him now, but I will. There will be a star rise out of Jacob, and a scepter shall come out of Israel. So we're talking about a ruler. There will be a ruler, a conqueror, a captain that will come out of Israel and will destroy Moab and destroy Edom. So Moab and Edom are the 2 countries so far that have absolutely set themselves against Hebrews. They are their enemies. They're not even pretending to be nice. They hate them and want to kill them. Okay? And before the armies went, they wanted to hire the guy to curse them. Okay? It was part of the plan. So these are God's enemies that have pronounced themselves to be God's enemies, and he will be destroyed by this conqueror, by this star out of Jacob, out of the scepter out of Israel. Okay, so this is Messianic. This is a prophecy about Christ, that there will be the king, God's king, that nobody else wants. God's king will eventually destroy all of God's enemies. Now, that didn't happen when Jesus came the first time. He didn't come as conqueror. He didn't ride the war horse. But the second time he comes, the scriptures are clear. He's not going to come meek and mild. He's not going to come never raising his voice. He is going to come laughing. He's going to come with a sword coming out of his mouth, and he's going to mow down his enemies. And it's not even going to be an effort. It won't be like it's even hard. He's simply going to annihilate those. And that's a scary, scary thing. And here's this pagan prophet that's prophesying about the Messiah, the coming of Jesus. Okay? Here's 18. And Edom shall be his possession. Seir shall also be a possession for his enemies. and Israel shall do valiantly. Out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, and shall destroy him that remaineth in the city. And when he looked upon Amalek, he took up his. So here's his fifth one. Amalek was the first of the nations. His latter end shall be perished forever. And he looked upon the Kenites, and he took up his parable and said, Strong is thy dwelling place, and thou putst thy rest in a rock. Nevertheless, the Kenites shall be wasted, until Asher shall carry them away captive. Now, these are ancient. This is an ancient book, old, thousands and thousands of years old. And these nations are known to us by different words. So Asher is the Assyrians. And the Assyrians, remember, is what we would call Syria today. They're having a civil war now. The Syrians carried away, they conquered hundreds of people groups, nations all throughout the Middle East, including the Israelites. The 2 tribes were in the south. They get carried away by Babylon, but the 10 tribes are carried away by the Assyrians, and essentially never brought back until later days. So here is the idea that you're okay now and you're pretty tough and strong now, but the Assyrians are going to come and they're going to completely take you away. And they did. And there has not been this country in the world since. They've never come back. So then he took up his parable and he said, Alas, who shall live when God does this? And the ship shall come from Kittim. Okay, Kittim is Cyprus, and that's one of the islands, one of the Greek islands. And ships shall come and shall afflict Asher and shall afflict Eber, and they shall perish. So we're talking about these nations that will conquer Edom, okay, and carry them away, will themselves be conquered when ships come from Cyprus. So we're talking about the 2 huge empires later, way hundreds of years after this, where the Greeks, Alexander the Great comes and just completely annihilates everyone. Everyone is now Greek. And then the Romans come and conquer all of those. And they all do it by navies. These navies come out and land on the coast and do as they please. So Balaam rose up and went and returned to his place, and Balak also went his way. So in this chapter, 3 chapters, you're going to see that Balaam has blessed God's people 5 times, talked about what happens to the nations around, the surrounding nations that are not destroyed. The Canaanite nations will be destroyed as soon as they enter, and then the remaining nations, what's going to happen to them. Some of them are very, very soon, and some of them are far into the distant future. But Balaam is talking about, in both cases, Jesus. Who is it that's going to destroy these people? First person probably would be David, and then ultimately the idea of who is the conqueror that will come out of Israel. It's Christ. Okay? So very interesting passage. I hope you're doing well. I love you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.